Hello everyone and welcome back to Beinecke Illuminated. I am your host Tubyez Cropper. Now for those of you who have missed the first episode, this is basically a visual podcast where I talk to different Beinecke staff about their favorite items in this vast collection that we have here at the Beinecke. So today I have Brenna Bychowski. And Brenna, how are you?
I'm great, how are you?
Wonderful. So Brenna has some amazing things here to talk about, probably one of my favorites so far. It's just amazing. We're going to get into it in a bit. But first, let's just talk about you for a second. Tell us what you do at the Beinecke, your official title, what you're currently working on, and how do you get into this line of work, things around that.
Yeah. So my title is Catalog Metadata Librarian, and I work in the rare book cataloging unit. So we handle pretty much all the materials that are not manuscript. So books, serials, pamphlets, broadsides, but then also things like maps, any sort of graphic materials. So we get games sometimes, board games or card games. We also do realia, so that's like toys, the rare bottle of aftershave, all sorts of weird and interesting things like that. And as a cataloger, my job is to describe these things in our online catalog so that researchers can find them. Ideally, they can find things that they know they're looking for, but then if we're doing our jobs well, they find things that they didn't know they were looking for.
Gotcha.
So that they can find out all the amazing things that we have on whatever topic it is interests them. And sometimes it's as simple as copying information from the item into the catalog, but sometimes it involves research to sort of pin down dates and creative things and how different items are related. So it's a lot of fun, and we just get to see just the wide array of everything that we have here. It's fabulous. And
I do, before you continue, I do want to point out that the best thing about this visual podcast is, we're showing a lot of things that, people don't know about, the things that people don't know exist here at the Beinecke that we collect. So yeah, Brenna, how did you get into this line of work? How did it all start?
Well, I was a history major in undergrad, as were so many librarians, and I knew I was going to library school right afterwards, which I know is pretty unusual for a lot of librarians. They sort of fall into it sideways.
Set in stone.
But I knew that was what I was going to do. But when I started library school, I thought I was going to go into reference and public services because I was learning so many amazing research skills that I really wanted to be able to share with undergrads. So I was like, I wish I'd known this when I was a history major. I want to pass that on. But then one of my classes did a visit to the Rare Book Library on campus. So I was at Indiana University, so this is the Lilly Library, which is this amazing, amazing repository that just has all sorts of fabulous things. And I saw just the cool things in the collection, everything from a Shakespeare First Folio to Oscars. And I was like, maybe this is the kind of place I want to work. But I'm still thinking reference. So I did an internship in public services, got to curate some exhibitions, give some tours, and it was a lot of fun. And so then that turned into a job working in the reading room there as a student. I was like, how much more time can I spend here? I want to get all the skills that I can. And I became friends with one of the catalogers there, and she's like, you should let me teach you to catalog, because I think you'll like it. I'm like, okay, so finally I broke down. I was like, okay, teach me how to catalog. And I really enjoyed that too, but I enjoyed everything. I also did archival processing while I was there. I tried to do a little bit of whatever I could just to work with these materials and get some experience. So when it came time to start applying for jobs, public services skills are really transferable. You can use the same skills in a rare book library, a public library, an academic library. There's a lot going on there, but rare book cataloging tends to involve a little bit more of a different skill set than traditional cataloging does. And so there was a lot more competition for public services jobs than cataloging jobs.
Gotcha.
So it was the cataloging jobs that started responding. And I'm like, sure, I'll take whatever I can to get an actual job. But then once I was cataloging regularly, like, oh no, this is what I love. I love just getting into the materials and getting to spend time getting to know them. And it's like one of the best ways to learn a collection anywhere is to just spend time describing it so that other people can find it.
Great. So what do you have for us today?
So today I have comic books.
Yes.
You can't go wrong with comic books.
Huge comic book fan. I'm all for this.
So I brought in some issues of both the Batman comic and Detective Comics, which is one of DC's earliest sort of ensemble comics. Various characters would show up, and that's where they would introduce new characters and see if people like them. And then if they did, then they'd get their own spin-offs.
Gotcha.
So like Batman first appeared in Detective Comics before he got his own series. And he still appeared in Detective Comics, like all of the...
And Batman just recently had his 80th anniversary, right?
Yes, he did, of his first appearance in the issue of Detective Comics, So he first appeared there, then he got his own spin-off series. But of course, as with all the major superheroes, there's lots of other really cool characters around him. So a character that was introduced in the late 60s to go with him was Batgirl. There have been several Batgirls over the years, but the first one was Barbara Gordon. She's the daughter of Police Commissioner James Gordon, and she is a librarian, which is why I like her so much. She's the head librarian of the Gotham Public Library. And so what I did not know until I started working with these, because I've never spent a lot of time looking at old comics, I mostly read contemporary comics, was that she would use her librarian skills to solve crime, which is just amazing. What librarian doesn't want to secretly solve crime? So for example, she has a story in issue number 410 of Detective Comics, and she's even on the cover of it, Batman and Batgirl, where she happens to be at work and notices some people acting suspiciously and knows that there's this big brouhaha happening in the fashion industry where this model is going to be setting the trends for the next few years, and there's all sorts of espionage going on to find out what she's going to do. And so she sees people looking at books on fashion history, and this one guy returns them, and the next guy is like, "Ooh, I'd like to see this." She's like, "Sorry, you can't until they've been checked back in." And so she like gets them right out of his way. She's like, "But I noticed what they are, so I know what you're looking for, sir, so I can thwart you."
Love it. Yeah. And I know you brought in a few boxes, so I'm very curious on how large this collection of comics is. Do you have an idea or approximate number of
like the total number of comics that we have? Oh, I do not even know.
Yeah, I couldn't even imagine.
But the collection that I have been working with, those nice big archival boxes that the Manuscript unit uses, I had about 9 of those, just full of comics to start with. I've windowed it down to about 6 or 7 now, so I'm making progress.
Oh my gosh. Wow.
Yeah.
Okay, so that is a Batgirl comic.
Yes, this is one of our issues.
Love it. And what were the other ones that you want to share?
So we have another, let's see, this is another issue of Detective Comics, and it's, again, you can tell how popular Batgirl was because she was getting her name on the front along with Batman.
Sorry to interrupt. Is this before Robin?
No, Robin is here, definitely. So a lot of the Batman stories will feature Robin. Okay. So the thing with the Detective Comics is that you usually have multiple stories in one issue. It's not just a whole issue. That's one story. So if you put multiple characters on the cover, it doesn't necessarily mean that they're interacting. It just means each of them has a story. So Batgirl's story in this is like a solo adventure. She isn't necessarily, helping Batman, which is fun because she gets to go off and do things by herself too. So in this particular story, her father is asking for her help because there's been a crime and the building is burned down and they found a library book in the wreckage. And so he's like, "Why don't you take this and see what you can tell me?" And so it's a book about like subversive politics and stuff. And so it leads her to this underground group of rabble-rousers. And the girl who checked it out isn't like super invested in it. She's just been reading up on it and getting pulled in by the wrong crowd. And so, of course, Batgirl comes in and saves her and helps shut down all of the bad things that this group is planning on doing to Gotham.
I love this. I love this so much. Wow. I mean, like, I can just imagine how much you just, geek out about this stuff when it comes on your desk. And it's just like, that's just the most fun job to have. And what's the third one we have here?
So the third one is it's an actual issue of Batman rather than Detective Comics. So it does feature our friends Batman and Robin.
Love it.
So one of the funny things about this particular story is that Batgirl does not know that Bruce Wayne is Batman's secret identity. He also does not know that she is Barbara Gordon, because of course you never tell anyone your secret identity. So he's trying to get her to help him solve this case, and to earn her trust, he decides to reveal his secret identity. And he shows that he is Bruce Wayne, but he makes it look like it's makeup and like a mask that he's wearing. So she's like, oh, you can't fool me. You're pretending to be Bruce Wayne, but I can see through you. And so it's like a double blind. That he is in fact Bruce Wayne. And it ends with her father having a dinner with Barbara at the table and Bruce Wayne at the table, and they're all just interacting, and none of them has any idea who any of them are.
I can imagine that in the TV show, just imagining that scene. That's wow.
Yeah, and so this one also is like fun with the librarian stuff, because you actually get to see, you know, her looking in a card file, which of course we don't have a lot of in our libraries anymore, but in special collections we still have a few of them. But then you get like this wonderful action sequence of her changing into her Batgirl costume and talking about how, like, oh, the sweater she was wearing is her normal work clothes, just like gets reversed to be part of her costume, and she can like turn her handbag inside out to be her gear bag, and she has like these crazy Leia buns going on and glasses, so it's very stereotypical librarian.
Yeah. Do you see, because I'm sure you go through decades of, you know, comics, do you see a progression of, you know, illustration in it? Do you see a whole change, a whole shift in the way they, you know, created these comic books and these characters, costumes,
definitely.
Yeah.
Lots of characters go through look changes, especially for the longest running comic series. The creators involved don't stay the same. They change over time. So the writers will change, the artists will change. Sometimes it's issue to issue as they're trying to find like the right mesh of people. But then you'll get artists who have like a really long run, and any new artist or writer will add their stamp to a character. The men's costumes tended to stay a little stabler than the women's did, because there's definitely shift with the fashion of the time. Like they'll have go-go boots, or they'll have short boots. But the most like obvious progression of any one given character's outfits that I saw was Supergirl. Actually, in the span of about 10 years, she went through about 5 or 6 different costumes. Long capes, short capes, like leggings, mini skirts, hot pants, like thigh-high boots, go-go boots, like everything.
I have seen her in a few different outfits, So
I think it was just a response to the 70s and everything changing so fast.
So as of now, is any of this stuff available for anybody to look at and research?
Oh, definitely. As pretty much as soon as I'm finished cataloging something, you know, once it's in the catalog, people can come and look at things. And one of the really nice things about what I'm getting to do is a lot of the series that I'm working with, I'm adding to things that we already have. So either we already have a pretty substantial run and I'm adding 20 issues or something, or we might have 2 or 3 issues and I'm adding like 30 or 40. So a lot of these are already in the catalog, but the way people think about comic books has changed a lot in like the past 20 and 30 years. And so traditionally, we treat these as serials. So you'll have like one record for a whole title. And traditionally with serials, you don't trace contributors a lot because there's so many of them. They change so much, and there's only so much space you have in a record. You can't trace 150 people in one record because that just goes crazy. But the contributors for comic books are really important. The writers, the artists, and all of that. And so I'm now adding that information to the records. Like, I can't do everybody, but anybody who does sort of a substantial amount with any given title, I'll trace the writers and the artists. But I also have been trying to be good about tracing the contributors who tended to get less recognition, so like the letterers and the colorists. And that's particularly important with early comics because we so often... it's very easy to think of comics traditionally being for guys. The art is very tailored towards young men, and most of the famous writers and illustrators were all men. But a lot of women were involved in early comics, but they were mostly letterers and colorists who tend to just sort of fall to the bottom and get a lot less recognition.
Okay, yeah.
So being able to bring out those contributions is really rewarding, and one of the reasons I love doing this.
I love your job. So yes, for those of you who are interested in looking at these comics and, you know, want to fan over these amazing illustrations, they are available. But Brenna, thank you so much for coming and talking to us about this. Is there anything else that you wanted to put out there or say or reiterate about Beinecke's policies? Anything to say?
Just to say that we have an amazing selection of things here, and it's really easy to think of a rare book library as a place that has lots of fancy old books.
Mm-hmm.
So, you know, illuminated manuscripts and early printed things like the Gutenberg Bible and stuff like that. That's certainly what my first idea of a rare book library was. But we have so much more than that, including, I mean, comic books. That doesn't seem like the kind of thing necessarily that would be special enough to be here, but it is, because they are important cultural artifacts that tell us about what people actually like to read for fun and things like that. And the catalog is a great place to start to look for these things, and it certainly can be intimidating. There's a lot of stuff in there. So always, you know, talk to the librarians and ask about search terms and things like that. If you're interested in the comics, all the records should have a nice little term in them called comics. So you can put that into the catalog and pretty easily find everything that we have. But just poking around and seeing what is there, because 95% sure whatever you're interested in, we have something.
Yeah, just dive in, right? You know.
Yeah, and don't be afraid to ask questions. Librarians are totally here to help you, and everyone has so much knowledge about the collections that we're pretty much all happy to just like word vomit over anybody listen to us. So give us the chance and we will impart anything we can to help.
Perfect. Well, this has been another episode of Beinecke Illuminated. Brenna, thank you so much for coming once again.
Thank you for having me.
And we will see you next time.